I think the most difficult part is getting past the fear, right? And I always say fear is false evidence appearing real. Okay, it's false evidence. You have all these things in your head that the AI is going to give you work slop, or it's going to it's going to hallucinate, it's not going to be right. Well, then get evidence, right? So the only way you're going to get evidence is jumping in and picking one task, picking one workflow.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast. We're going from Tech-Averse to Tech Savvy is less about knowing code and more about knowing you can make a robot do all your busy work. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Well, happy Thanksgiving, y'all. It's going to be a fun show today. We're going to talk about what it really takes to build a workplace where humans and AI work side by side and actually thrive doing it. We'll explore the shift from retrofitting old workflows with new tools, we've seen a bunch of that, and we're going to shift that to reimagining work itself. Today will be a deep dive into how AI can become more than just an automation engine. It can be a catalyst for creativity, efficiency, and even personal growth, but only if we're willing to change more than just the tech. We have to shift our mindset too. We'll unpack the role of tools like Flippy, an AI intern designed to help people experiment, delegate low value tasks, and focus on their unique strengths. You'll hear why real transformation doesn't start with tech, it starts with behavioral change, unlearning limiting beliefs, and creating a safe culture for experimentation. This episode also serves as a wake up call. Many companies still treat AI like a bolt on feature. Maybe that's you, maybe it's not. But that mindset is setting them up to fail in this new world. Just like Blockbuster missed the shift to DVDs and vending machines to streaming, leaders today risk missing the AI wave by clinging to outdated processes and fear based thinking. We'll talk through the idea of autonomous digital teammates, how AI will become a fixture of tomorrow's teams, and what skills like curiosity, adaptability, and trust will define the most successful employees in this new era. If you're leading transformation, navigating disruption, or maybe just wondering how to prepare your team for what's next, this episode gives you the mindset, models, and motivation to do it right. Clear your mental tabs. This one is worth your full attention. Our expert guest last Thursday was Thanos Diakakis. He gave us a masterclass in shipping faster without sacrificing quality or burning out your team. I've done both of those. From his days leading Uber's bike platform to coaching engineering organizations out of velocity traps, Thanos explained why happy teams ship better, how to ditch cargo cult rituals, and why faster releases often increase quality, not the other way around. It's a fantastic episode. And then our founder last Tuesday, Alberto Rizzoli, CEO of V7. He broke down how AI agents are shifting from tools to teammates. We explored what it looks like to operate with a chief of staff AI. Very, very cool stuff. And how enterprise adoption is still the bottleneck. And why 2026 will be all about user experience, not just model performance. If you missed either episode, go back and check those out. My guest today is Monica Marquez, a workplace AI strategist and transformation leader, helping Fortune 500 companies prepare for the real future of work. With 20 years of experience at Google, Goldman Sachs, Ernst& Young, and Bank of America, Monica has pioneered everything from return to work programs to inclusive product design. And now, through her company Flipwork, she's helping organizations and their people make AI adoption actually stick. She's also the voice behind AI, a weekly briefing for leaders navigating AI disruption with clarity, speed, and strategy. If you're rethinking how your team works in an AI first world, this is a blueprint for transformation. Welcome someone shaping not just the tools, but also the mindsets behind the future of work. Monica Marquez. Hey, Monica, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and you offering up space on your platform.
Well, your career spans Google, Goldman Sachs, and multiple startups. Pretty awesome.
Yeah,
What made you
thanks.
decide to step out of corporate and build Flipwork?
Well, the through line in my entire career has always been focusing on helping humans really realize their full potential. And so, working in all of these organizations, I found that I was kind of the same song, different DJ. Every organization I was going to, I was, working on the same type of problem and really helping trying to impact the people in those organizations. And I really started to realize that if I wanted to scale my impact beyond the four walls of whatever organization I was in, that I would need to probably go off on my own and then be able to partner with many organizations and really kind of have bigger impact. And so that was really the driving factor behind it. And I would say back in right before COVID, 2020 is when I kind of took the leap and did that. And ironically, I was fearful during COVID, but ironically, it was probably the best timing because we were going very, very digital and virtual in order to scale that impact, and it really helped us in the long run because companies were needing that.
Yeah, they absolutely had to transform, change the way that they were working. And you've
Yes,
really seen that transformation, I mean, inside some of the world's biggest companies. And
yes,
how does Flipwork fill that gap and kind of change how they approach change
yes.
that you built into Flipwork?
Yeah. So I've always been, I think part of the reason I've been so successful in my career and I attribute it because I grew up as an Air Force brat and my father was moving around everywhere. So I had to get very comfortable with change at a very early age and being able to reinvent myself in every new, base, Air Force base that we landed at and every new school. And I think that carried on with me in my career of being able to really pivot quickly and be able to reinvent themselves. And so a lot of those things I started to really help within organizations of people embrace change because as humans, we resist change. And so with Flipwork, what we're doing is we realized that early on last year, we started seeing that lots of companies investing in AI, investing in the tool in AI. But if you noticed lately, headlines, or even the research coming out from MIT and other organizations, is that millions, billions of dollars have been invested in the IT portion or the tools, but less than 2% of the companies are actually seeing ROI on that. And what they're really understanding is that it's because nobody's teaching the tool to the human. So it's saying, hey, here's this tool, use it, but the human themselves need to kind of go through a process where you have to start to really shift your mindset and your own identity of how might I do work differently with AI, not taking AI and applying it to your old playbook, but how do you reinvent the entire playbook in order to really leverage AI for what you need to do. And so that's what we've been doing is we go into organizations and it's a bit of a three-pronged approach, right? We help people start to see themselves in a different way, shifting their identity that, it's me plus AI or me plus the technology. How do I leverage AI to augment my zone of genius? And then once you kind of start embracing the idea that AI is not here to replace you, but it's here to really up level you, then you start to say, how might I do my work completely different, with AI? And then really maintaining and sustaining that mindset of change. And because even if you are shifting the way you're doing work, it may be different 6 months down the road, a year down the road, as the technology keeps updating and learning and things like that. And so we come in really focused on the human part of the AI, the behavioral change. Like, how do you actually help people shift that mindset and really start to really get rid of the unlearning those kind of limiting beliefs that is stopping them from leveraging the AI.
That was really smart. Kind of centered around people and possibility. So
Yes,
looking not just the old
absolutely.
playbook, but what's possible next.
What's possible? Absolutely. And what we're seeing for most of people, it's you what got you here is not going to get you there, and you've got to
Yeah.
just throw away the old playbook. Yeah,
Well, yeah, I've heard it said multiple times, people are not going to be replaced by AI, but it's the people that use AI will outpace those that don't. Um, it-
absolutely.
Most companies are still focused on tools, not necessarily
Yes.
the talent behind them or how to apply those.
Mhm.
Um, how does human enablement, how is that the missing piece?
It's the missing piece because we're humans, right? And we are creatures of habit. And what we're starting to find is that it can be generational kind of conditioned beliefs, it can be cultural conditioned beliefs, it can be just even the organization's culture or old way of doing things. The way that they used to do things that are being challenged, right? And so what we're hearing sometimes is an interesting conversation I had with this young Latino professional who Latinx professional who told me, listen, I've been taught my entire life and my career that I have to work twice as hard to get half as far, and I have to work twice as hard and to give like better output than my peer in order to be successful. And so they were like, on any given day, I have to do every given week, I have to do an analysis report, a market analysis report. And it usually takes me about 8 hours to do it. When I use AI, it spits out something for me in minutes. And then I could technically put that out in 2 hours. I don't trust it. I don't like,
Right.
how is this, I've always been taught, like this individual has always been taught that effort and sweat equity equals success. And now with AI, the effort is gone. So now they're questioning their value and they're starting to question, like, is this even like, do I trust it? Do I believe it? So I'm going to shun it and I'm going to keep putting in the 8 hours to do my report.
Right.
But what they don't realize is that somebody else is going to do that report in 2 hours and it's going to have better output, and they're going to probably do 10 reports in the 8 hours that
Yeah.
that they're doing the one report. And so getting them to understand that you have to really unlearn and really disrupt that belief system, and really start to create this equation that impact equals success. So how much more impact could you have by really finessing that report to be, have much higher impact or have more output, right? Instead of doing one market analysis, you could do several market analysis or do different types of reporting, and that in and of itself is going to be better work than the one report the old way. And so that's what we're starting to see, is that people are having to unlearn and really kind of disrupt these conditioned beliefs that are holding them back. And so those are the other things. Another kind of like myth that we're trying to help people bust is that AI is for techie people, not for me. I'm non-technical. I
Yeah.
don't know tech. That's not for me. And so leave it to the tech, or they're waiting around for the IT department to tell them how they're supposed to use the tool to do their work. And the IT department is saying, hey, we're giving you the tool. You're the expert in your own workflows. You're the expert in your area. You need to test and learn and figure out how to use it. And so we're trying to really demystify all of this for people to say that, you have a zone of genius, that you have to start to step back and start to say, how might I use AI to reinvent the way we do work? And you have to be part of that process. It can't just be somebody giving you the tool and you figuring out how to use it.
So good. Let's talk about Flippy, the AI
Yeah.
change agent. Kind of a cool
Yes.
concept. How does it work, and maybe how does it fit into just a day in the life of Fortune 500 team?
Yeah. So, Flippy is kind of what I like to say. Uh, uh, is your safe space, because a lot of the times too, when we're always afraid to admit, like, I don't know what I don't know. Sometimes you don't want to have that conversation with your manager or with your teammates, or if you are seen as the go-to, or you are supposedly the genius, or the expert in your space. it's really hard sometimes to just say, I don't know. Like, we all struggle with that. And so Flippy is this change agent that you can work with that will help you start to little by little confide in Flippy to say, how might I? Like, you could take Flippy and say, hey, today I have to accomplish these 3 things. How might I do them differently with AI? What order should I do them in? This is typically how I do it. I do A, B, and C. I gather the data. I do all of these things. Where can AI help me? And so this is where you can really start to work, and it's trained to really start to ask you questions of like, okay, what is the pain point? What are the gritty things that you have to do that you don't like to do, or that maybe AI can replicate, can basically come in and take over and do for you, so that you can start to get accustomed to running experiments, testing and learning, and able to do that. And so Flippy is this safe space where you can start doing that. But Flippy also helps you on the reflective side of, even if you go to Flippy and say, hey, I don't even know how to articulate my zone of genius. Like, here's, how do I do that? And Flippy will start asking simple questions of like, well, what do you love to do that you get lost in? What are some of the unique things that you bring, to your, what do people come to you for? What are you known for already? So Flippy will try to help you understand what is that zone of genius that you should then really be focusing on to do more of that. And then let AI and other tools and, the tech stack that's approved by your company be able to do some of this other work, so that you can really focus on the high value work, where you bring in the discernment, the judgment, your lived experience in terms of being able to like know the industry. Because what people don't realize is, yes, AI is going to replace some of this monotonous administrative work that most of us actually should be pretty happy to hand off. But the AI doesn't really know client relationships. The AI doesn't know how to read the room. The AI doesn't understand like judgment and discernment and all of these things that the human really needs to come in and bring in. And so Flippy really helps you have almost a conversation to help you understand, to the point where you get confident, to where then you can actually show up to your team more confident in saying, here's how I'm using the AI, and here's how I'm taking the artificial intelligence that's being spit out and making it my own authentic intelligence, because I'm layering my authenticity and my expertise on top of it. And so that's what we're trying to do. And Flippy really helps someone go through that journey where, on a regular day, you may not be confiding that deeply with your manager, or
Sure.
really having a sponsor, mentor, or somebody kind of hold your hand all the way through the process.
I like that. It's almost like reinventing themselves. It's it's putting on their cape. Now they're
Yeah.
superheroes, and so
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
a different identity than what they were before, and the productivity is just skyrocketing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When we think about AI projects, and McKinsey throws out a stat: 95% of AI pilots fail because people aren't
Yes.
using the tools. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's the good side of that is people are actually doing experiments. That's a
Yeah.
good thing. I mean, pilots are not all supposed to be successful.
Hmm.
But Will, what's the biggest resistance pattern that you see, and how do you help leaders break that?
Yeah. I think part of it is demystifying and helping create a little bit of transparency for people, because the initial, if we think about the headlines when AI first started coming out, a little like 2 years ago, it was really kind of catching on, almost 2 years ago. People were afraid, oh, it's hallucinating, it makes up all these answers, it's not secure, it's learning from you, it's taking your, don't put in your proprietary stuff, and all of these things. Those things have been answered, right? There's enterprise grade AI tools now that, your enterprise has created this safe space bubble that, like all the security. So as long as you are following the rules and the boundaries that your company has put and said, hey, make sure you use the enterprise grade account
Right.
that you have. A lot of those things where people still think AI is bad, right? There was some negative connotations with it and all of that people have to unlearn. But the other resistance is, it's not so much resistance, it's a lack of trust, right?
Mm.
People don't trust the AI yet. And part of it is you can't build trust without evidence or without an exchange of like doing things. And so what we do when we work with, certain leaders, we say, listen, leaders, managers of teams or leaders of teams have to lead by example and really kind of share, how are you using AI? And how are you need to create an environment, like the psychological safety, still a big thing, and creating space to let people test and learn, and leverage AI for the workflow and all of these types of things. Part of the research, when you actually dig into the research of why 95% of the pilots are failing, is where they were basically saying, here are these tools and use them, right? And people like, I have no idea where to start or how to start, and so they would do it, and maybe they would get an output that they didn't like, and so they were like, it's not for me, it's not what it is. What I try to tell people is you have to treat AI, and I'm a person who loves alliteration and wordplay. So AI, artificial intelligence, you have to treat AI on your team like an artificial intern.
I
When you
like
have an
that.
intern, you give them a task. You never take the output, or you never take whatever the intern gives you for face value and give it to the client or give it to your leadership or anything of the sort. You always check the work. You work with the intern to say, this is wrong, fix it, tweak it, redo this or whatever. You have to do the same thing with AI. You have to basically transfer your knowledge to it and really kind of help finesse what it is that you want in order to get the right kind of output. And so you have to treat it like an artificial intern or a digital teammate that you're coaching and teaching along the way, in order to get what you want. And so that's where we're trying to help people get rid of that resistance of, it's not going to spit out exactly what you want the very first time. It's going to be in the ballpark, but you've got to really kind of coach and nurture and train the AI to give you the output that you're wanting. And you are the expert to help discern that.
That's really, really good. I love that, the artificial intern.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
very, very good. Good
Yeah.
way to think about it, because it's
Yeah.
exactly right. From your experience with leadership teams, how do you
Mhm.
get the execs to stop viewing change initiatives as just another thing to do or another thing on the plate, and help them start seeing it as the thing, or seeing it as the plate itself?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's hard. It's an evolution. And the thing with AI that's really hard is that it's changing work faster than people can change, right? And so we're so used to a particular cadence with change of like, yes, there's going to be the early adopters, and then eventually, like, we're all going to jump on the bandwagon. This is more like this, like, turbo speed, rocket ship that's kind of coming through, and people are missing, are going to miss the opportunity. And so this is one of those things where they're going to have to start reading kind of the signals that change is happening much faster, and so they're going to have to help people change and embrace change much faster. And so this is where we really encourage this idea of experimentation, of giving people permission to try out the AI in certain ways, and then just reminding people of these things have happened in the past, right? Examples of like, hey, you don't want to be the next Blockbuster, right? I mean, Blockbuster was, back in the day, the story goes of like Netflix was starting to stream when Netflix was very, very, they probably weren't even called Netflix at the time. But when they approached Blockbuster to say, hey, you should acquire us because we see the future of home entertainment being streamed. There's not going to be a disc. There's not going to be anything at all. And the executives at Blockbuster were a little short sighted and were like, that's never going to happen. People
Right.
love going to the store and picking the movies and this and that. And where's Blockbuster now, right? There's
Yep.
there's museums of the last standing Blockbuster store,
Right.
but it's no longer in existence. And so getting leaders to realize that that change is continuing to happen, and you don't want to really get erased. And so it's like you're going to have to really embrace this because it's not coming, it's already here. So this AI wave is already here, and so you either have to ride the wave or you're going to be on the shore getting crushed by it.
Yes. Are you missing key relationships that could transform your leadership? Most leaders are. They just can't see it. And here's what shocked me: the most successful leaders aren't lone heroes. They're the center of four specific relationships that multiply their impact while preserving their sanity. You're probably like everybody else, drowning in connections, but starving for real support. And it's creating a silent epidemic of leadership burnout among executives just like you. So, take my free assessment at thecaptainskeys.com. Discover which critical relationships you're missing in under 5 minutes, and then grab my new book, The Captain's Keys, part Netflix drama, part game changing blueprint for leadership that actually sustains you. One CEO called it the owner's manual I never got. So stop flying blind and see what you're missing. You built and exited a company and then launched another in a category where most people don't fully understand it yet.
Yeah.
What's been harder the second time around, and maybe what's been easier?
Ironically, what's been easier is AI has really helped us. I would say if I had to go back and say my first company, like from, 0 to 1, how long did it take us to kind of build and get momentum? And having to find talent and teams and all of these kind of things. And if I were to compare us, starting line at the starting line and at the 50-yard line, 100-yard line, I feel like AI has helped us get further much faster with less people, because AI is doing a lot of this work that we would have potentially outsourced in the past. I think the hardest part about it is trying to stay as current and making sure that we are as agile and AI fluent as it's changing. And so sometimes the way that, we may complete a task that we did last week is going to be different than this week, and be comfortable with it, because we're, just constantly changing with the change and making sure that we are at the forefront. Right. And I think the hardest part is that, like you said, AI is so new that, it's kind of like we're having to, all of us kind of blind leading the blind of like, how are we using AI, and not being afraid to be the first one to go out there and say, hey, we're testing and learning, and here's what we're learning, and
Right.
transferring that knowledge so that you can learn from our mistakes and we can kind of keep going. And so being comfortable with saying, hey, we fell flat on our face. It didn't quite work, this workflow, this agent, whatever, and we're tweaking and tweaking, but we're going to help you by giving you, the recipe, and this is what's working, and we're going to continue tweaking. And so I think that's been kind of one of the most difficult things is, being comfortable of not knowing what you don't know, and getting there and saying, oh, okay, I just learned how not to do it, and I can transfer that knowledge to people as we continue to kind of like be on the forefront and be the pioneers to kind of like, okay, hey, we're kind of doing a lot of the experimenting for you.
I like that. Being on the forefront and really kind of pushing those boundaries and being early in the process. How has that changed your go-to-market message and how you're talking to your prospects?
I mean, it's one of those that have, really getting them to understand that we are leading by example ourselves, right? And so when we talk to every client, we can say, like, when we first rolled out the pilot at X company, this is what we were trying to solve for. And along the way, we discovered X, Y, and Z. So now the service we're rolling out to you is not just a two-pronged approach. Now it's a three-pronged approach, because we found that you have to address this first before you get people to embrace the change and all of this. Because I would say, just being an expert in many years working in leadership development, learning development, and those types of things, even being able to say, the old way we used to teach people is not going to work. Like, we even have to change the way that change management is rolled out in organizations, because the technology and the AI is changing it. Like, the old way of episodic training and all of these things, by the time you teach them, it's already outdated. So you've got to learn how to weave in this training into their day to day. And so it's a little bit of that, of letting them know that, like, hey, we are experts in being able to reinvent and transform, and kind of, we're becoming experts in being able to like fix the plane while it's flying. And so, we will go along this journey with you, with your teams, and with your people. And, letting them know that, like, this is where, in a way, it's kind of like this hyper customization for them, because everybody's unique. Every organization's unique. They have their proprietary way of doing things. And so there's not really a one size fits all. But the beauty about AI is that it helps you really tailor the workflows and the agents to them. So it's kind of like a bit of a catch 22 in a sense of like, hey, we don't know what we don't know. Well, we're going to have to lift the hood and kind of dive in there with you. But we know that on the end, you're going to have the outcomes and the outputs that you want.
Oh, that's good. Hey, you did mention, I mean, AI is definitely going faster than most people can process and change. What do you think the
Mhm.
workplace will look like, say, 5 years from now for companies that didn't take people transformation seriously?
I mean, I think that people are going to have truly like digital teammates. And, some of it's almost kind of needing to, I could see people just referring to AI as another team member, right? Like, your Chad, Chad GPT is going to help us give that to Chad, right?
Yeah.
And all of these types of things. But I really do see that people are going to be much more engaged. And I think people are going to realize how vital having the human as key to make sure the technology is successful, right? And so it's one of those things where AI isn't going to replace people. Like you said earlier, people who leverage AI are going to replace or outpace people who don't. And that's where it's going to be this symbiotic kind of relationship where it's a bit of a new hybrid workplace, right? It's no longer work from home hybrid. It's going to be hybrid in the sense of every employee is going to have like a hybrid version of themselves that's helping them get their work done.
Oh, that's good. I can definitely see
Yeah.
that happening. Already starting to,
Yeah.
as people are using more and more. Yeah, as a founder, how have you're definitely selling transformation. It's not just technology. I mean,
Mhm.
transformation literally in that it is change management for people.
Yes.
How have you marketed that or positioned it when tech executives again kind of they're super busy already. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, how do you position that with them and really sell the ROI to that transformation?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is, we tell them to pay attention to what their leaders, the leadership is worried about. What is the CEO worried about? And the thing that you always hear is that will my talent be able to upskill as quickly as needed? Or, will I have the right talent to be able to meet the KPIs and the metrics that the company needs to meet? And the reality is that they're not going to be able to meet those things unless they leverage AI because their counterparts or their competition is. And so it's almost one of those things where we're starting to see it now. Last week, I think my last newsletter that I wrote was highlighting the fact that Citibank or Citi is making all 175,000 employees learn how to prompt, right? They're basically being trained on prompting. My warning is that prompting is table stakes. Like everybody's going to have to
Right.
learn how to prompt and engage with AI. But if you want to differentiate yourself, you've got to really start to think about agentic AI, right? And you start with prompting. But as I mentioned, you prompt your artificial intern, you get this output. You don't quite like it. You're going to have to keep prompting and prompting till you get to the output you want. Then you have to reverse engineer and say, what are all of the things and the tweaks and things that I had to tell the AI, the
Right.
intern, to get this? Now, how do I create a process or an agent that's going to do all of those things to make sure that my output looks the same every week, right? And so prompting is great, but prompting is kind of like kindergarten, right? You've got to
Yeah.
kind of start getting evolved. And so just telling the leadership, look at everything that's happening. Look at these organizations like the cities of the world who are making everybody learn how to prompt because they're using AI. If you aren't doing the same, your talent is going to get left behind and not able to upskill, which it's going to have that trickle down effect to the organization itself. And so, it's just like you've got to just start looking at the signals and stepping back and saying what is happening and making sure that, we are staying, ahead of the curve.
What has been the biggest challenge in building the company and bringing it to market? You said growth has been faster than the first one.
Yeah.
What kinds of challenges have there been?
Challenges, I would say, would be that, it's almost sometimes the fear that what we're putting out there is going to be dated already. And so it's just
Yeah.
like getting comfortable with this idea that, okay, it's the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And sometimes those iterations are happening faster than they normally would. In my old company, we rolled out the first product and then we kind of innovated and revised it the second year. And then the third year, we were like, it's even better now. We're seeing that happen every quarter, right? It's just like, oh, it's getting better. And oh, we're having to teach this. And so it's one of those things where the cadence of like the upgrades and the innovation is much faster. And so that's been the biggest challenge of like making sure we ourselves are staying current with those changes so that we can continue to transfer that knowledge to our clients.
Oh, that's really good. And again, it just kind of goes back to the speed of change and how fast people can change
Yes.
and
Yeah.
adopt it.
Yeah, I really do think that the new kind of currency or the secret to success is being agile and being, flexible and not being afraid of the change. I mean, Nikki, my co-founder CEO, says it's no longer survival of the fittest, it's survival of the fastest. And so it's one of those things of getting your people comfortable with change, which naturally is, we're humans and we resist the change, but how do we start to kind of get comfortable with that change and the pace of change and just know that that is something that is going to be um, the first priority, is that change is going to be constant.
It is. What do you think is difficult for people to build that skill? Or what can they do to build that skill better,
Mhm.
faster?
I think the most difficult part is getting past the fear, right? And I always say fear is false evidence appearing real. Okay, it's false evidence. You have all these things in your head that the AI is going to give you work slop, or it's going to like it's going to hallucinate, it's not going to be right. Well, then get evidence, right? So the only way you're going to get evidence is jumping in and picking one task, picking one workflow and say, okay, for this month, I'm going to focus on this one workflow that I do, and I'm going to work with AI every day to complete this workflow. And then I'm going to get evidence as to how well or how much impact my impact increased, like measure the benefits. Now you have evidence showing you that, okay, I can trust this. Now I can take on a second workflow and a third workflow. And
Yeah.
before you know it, you have a brand new playbook, right? And so part of it is just getting in there and finding one thing, right? Some people, and I mean, it's beyond the, hey, write my like meeting notes, hey,
Right.
transcribe this, or, it goes beyond that. Like, what is a real workflow that you're working on? One of the, with some leaders, I've even said, hey, take your team, split them in half, tell this team A, to go do the market analysis the old way, tell this team leverage AI and look at the outputs in the end and say which ones are better. 9 times out of 10, the team that leveraged AI is going to have a deeper, more accurate, more robust, kind of like, polished output than the team that didn't. And, the feedback is yeah, I gave them one day, full day, 8 hours. Well, this team, they went and did it the old way, and it took them about 3 or 4 hours to pull all the research and the data together. And then they started analyzing it and then putting the slides and the pitch deck together. This team did it with AI and had all the research and the data pulled in a matter of, half an hour. And then they used the rest of that time to finesse, analyze, find different trends that this team just didn't have enough time to do. And so you start to see where the evidence is showing them, hey, AI is beneficial in these ways. And so it's trying it out, testing and learning. It's that old saying that my mom used to tell me: "Don't knock it till you try it." Right. So
Yeah.
really try it out and give it like a real chance to say, okay, let me learn as I go and get comfortable with the tools.
How should employees think about what processes to do first? And when they're focusing on that, say, hey, I'm going to work on this over the next month. What processes should rise to the top in the way that they think about how to prioritize those?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And part of it is going to take some reflection, right? And I tell people, gift yourself the time to step back and really hone in on what is your zone of genius. What are the things that only you could do that AI can't do? And those are the human qualities of like discernment, judgment, lived experience, expertise in the nuanced things that AI or other people wouldn't see. And sometimes asking yourself, what does your team already come to you for? Like your team might say, hey, we put together this pitch deck. Can you put your eyes on it? Because you always find something, or you always tweak it in a certain way. What are those things that you are really good at that you can then make sure that you are bringing to the table and focusing on that? And so I try to tell people, think about your workflow or a task that you do like an assembly line. And you used to waste a lot of time at the front part of the assembly line that can be automated probably with AI. Find areas where you have to then go further down in the assembly line where you need to use more judgment, more discernment, more where your eyes, your own eyes or your authentic kind of intelligence is going to be able to see something that the tech does not see. And so that's what I tell people of, you do need to step back a little bit. And that's where Flippy has helped our clients a lot, where, doing that work, at the very beginning of really starting to redefine and reinvent yourself in the workplace so that you can leverage AI in the right way and be able to delegate things to your artificial intern. And then you taking those outputs and adding your layer of authentic intelligence on that to get a better product. And so it is going to, it's not easy. It's much easier said than done, right? Because even today, when you tell people, give me your elevator pitch, or what are you really good at, people have a hard time articulating that. Well,
Yes.
you need to be able to articulate that to then know how to where to use AI to augment your zone of genius or your superpower.
So good. Well, last question. What's one belief you used to hold as a founder that you've now
Mhm.
completely let go of, and what did you replace it with?
I think as a founder, when I first left corporate and I came, I was like, there's no way that I can do this on my own, or I'm going to need a huge team of all of these experts and people to be able to do these things or to get it off the ground. And how am I going to afford it? I think with AI, that has dispelled a lot of that, where, yes, at the end of the day, we are going to bring in the expert or the professional at the right time, but we can save so much time by saying, hey, we've leveraged AI as much as we can, got it to this point. And so if it was like on a scale of 1 to 10, we got it to zero point 0.8, I mean, to 8. Now we need you to come in and take it to a 10, right? Where in the past, we used to go to them and say, hey, we haven't even started. We need you to take us from 0 to 10. Now we can actually come to people and, there's lots of cost savings where it's like, we've gotten it to this, to the 8th level. We need you to take it to level 10. And so I think for me, it's dispelled that, there's so much more potential that you can pull out of yourself, and AI can help you reinvent yourself. And so, it's one of those things where I partner with AI every day to get things done.
Love that. Well, where can people learn more about you and about Flipwork online?
Absolutely. Well, you can follow me on LinkedIn. It's just Monica Marquez on LinkedIn. My website is themonicamarquez.com, and I have a newsletter, and it's called III. And I thought of the name when I was trying to tell my grandmother, she was like, what do you do? What does your business do? And I was like, AI. And she was like, I, like this whole technology thing. I'm like, that's the perfect name. But it's a weekly newsletter, and it's a quick 5-minute read on different things that you can start doing in your day-to-day in work with prompts or new tools or just new ways of thinking, and even kind of some of these myth busters of, get rid of this limiting beliefs so that you can move forward with AI. But you can find us there. And then Flipwork, you can find us at flipwork.ai, and just learn more about our company and what we do. But yeah, reach out, don't be a stranger, and we'll reinvent ourselves together.
Outstanding. Monica, thank you for being on SaaS Fuel. It's been a great conversation and super valuable.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate it, and again, thank you for being so generous and giving us, a spotlight on your platform.
Thanks again, Monica, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. You can learn more about Monica and Flipwork at flipwork.ai. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. It's at Champion Leadership. We have full video episodes over there for you, training, outtakes, resources, lots of stuff over there for you. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with a person whose calendar has more colors than a heat map and maybe just as much anxiety. Everyone who shares this week, Thanksgiving week, gets a scheduling assistant powered by quantum probability. It only books meetings when your brain is 86% functional and your coffee is still hot. What if your investors didn't push you to exit as fast as possible, but helped you scale smart instead? Hmm, novel concept, right? Well, our next guest is Clee Kleber, co founder of Build Group, a private investment firm backing founders with permanent capital and hands on operational expertise. With a leadership resume spanning Dell, Rackspace, WP Engine, and Segway, Clee shares how to build companies that last without playing the VC short game. Then, after that, 1 week from today, we have Amos Bar-Joseph, CEO of Swan. They are the first company scaling to 10 million ARR with just 3 founders and a team of autonomous agents. He's not just imagining the future of the work, he is shipping it. So get ready to rethink what lean really means. Have a tremendous Thanksgiving. Be safe out there. Enjoy travel. And I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.